In the depths of the North China Sea, Chris Lemons found himself at its lowest point, equipped with only 6 minutes of breathable air in his emergency tanks. In the midst of the shadowy abyss, he came face to face with the harsh truth that this desolate place would mark the conclusion of his once vibrant life. However, fortune favored him, and his story did not unfold in that manner. Quite the opposite. His account of survival stands as one of the most awe-inspiring and extraordinary stories you'll ever come across. Even after enduring more than 30 minutes on the seafloor without air, Chris defied the odds and emerged alive. The mystery of how he managed to survive a condition deemed otherwise insurmountable remains an enduring puzzle, perplexing experts and captivating audiences to this very day. Typically, an average person can remain conscious for 1 to 3 minutes underwater and survive for about 10 minutes before succumbing to the lack of oxygen. There exists a tribute that challenges this norm, the Bashao people from the Philippines. They demonstrate an exceptional capacity to hold their breath for an astonishing 13 minutes, even at depths reaching 200 feet below the ocean's surface. But this remarkable feat isn't solely attributed to training. It's deeply rooted in their unique ancestry. For generations, their forebears led lives closely intertwined with the sea, fostering special adaptations that contribute to their exceptional breath-holding capabilities. While the hero of our story is not a part of this specific tribe, his diving skills are equally noteworthy and cannot be overlooked. He served as a saturation diver on the ship Bibi Topaz. You may be curious at this point about the role of a saturation diver, and that's entirely understandable, given that it ranks among the most hazardous and distinctly unconventional professions worldwide. The scarcity of individuals engaged in this field might contribute to its relative obscurity. Essentially, these professionals undertake construction and demolition tasks at depths exceeding 1,000 feet beneath the ocean's surface. This role is especially crucial in the oil and gas sector, where there is a demand for skilled individuals capable of navigating the seabed to execute intricate maneuvers essential for assembling, maintaining, and dismantling offshore wells, rigs, and pipelines. Tasks range from manipulating flow valves and tightening bolts using hydraulic jacks to operating in confined spaces around a blowout preventer. Despite our technological advancements, remote-operated vehicles just lack the tactile precision, maneuverability, and judgment required for these tasks. Chris was introduced to the realm of saturation diving, an unfamiliar world to him, thanks to his father's friend. He secured a summer position working on the back deck of a dive support vessel. Witnessing saturation divers emerging from their chambers appeared mysterious to him. He also soon realized that they quite live a luxurious life, for they own fancy cars. This prompted his youthful thoughts to envision pursuing this profession, drawn by the allure of a lucrative job that could satisfy his aspirations. He persevered in his boat work and received training for air diving in Scotland, a technique primarily used in shallower waters compared to deep-sea locations. Over a span of 8 years, Chris committed himself to the role of an air diver, amassing the essential experience that would eventually propel him into the challenging position of a saturation diver. He eventually achieved his dream position as a saturation diver, and he likened his lifestyle to a monastic experience. Abstaining from alcohol, he adhered to a daily exercise routine. However, the routine was disrupted by a harrowing incident in September 2012. It culminated in a series of extraordinary events, leading Chris to experience a miracle of a lifetime. The incident unfolded in the North Sea on his ship, the Bibi Topaz. We are well aware of how the sea can be unforgivingly harsh. This harrowing experience forced Chris to confront the stark reality that this body of water supporting his livelihood could, at any moment, become a perilous threat to his very existence. Alongside his colleagues Dave and Duncan, their mission for the day involved replacing a section of pipe and conducting routine checks within a substantial underwater structure known as a manifold. In the world of commercial saturation diving, such tasks were seemingly routine, with the only minor concern being the surface weather conditions. Despite the ship contending with 35-knot winds, Chris descended 91 meters in their diving bell together with his colleagues at around 9 p.m. Such weather conditions didn't faze him, as they were par for the course during that time of year. At the outset, their plan unfolded seamlessly with no deviations. However, about an hour into the dive, an alarm disrupted the tranquility with its sudden and unsettling noise. Instructions from above urged them to promptly vacate the area. Swiftly responding to the directive, they ascended, employing their umbilicals as makeshift ropes. While Dave safely reached the diving bell, Chris faced an unforeseen obstacle hindering his successful ascent. His umbilical cable had become entangled around a protruding pipe on the top of the manifold. This cable serves as a lifeline connecting the divers back to the diving bell and the ship, furnishing them with essential elements such as breathing gas, hot water to maintain warmth in the chilling 3 degrees C, and the provision of light and electricity. Horror-stricken by the dire circumstances, Chris desperately attempted to extricate himself from the cable. However, it proved unyielding, resisting his every effort. As it tightened, the audible strain and tension filled the underwater environment, a highly unlikely scenario given the typical abundance of slack in umbilicals. In a sudden revelation, Chris faced a grimmer realization. 90 meters above him, the Bibi Topaz was adrift. With an 8-ton boat pulling against him, he found himself serving as an anchor at the ocean floor. His only lifeline was a bailout bottle, a set of standard diving cylinders strapped to his back containing emergency gas. However, given the depth, he calculated that he had a mere 6 minutes of gas to sustain him. The likelihood of rescue within that time frame seemed almost non-existent. The communications cable snapped, and soon after, the gas hose stretched to the extent that he found himself without a source of breathable air. In a swift response, he opened the supply on his back. Right after that, the umbilical snapped with a sound reminiscent of a shotgun blast, causing him to plummet to the seabed. In the pitch-black depths, approximately 100 feet below the ocean's surface, he located the structure they had been working on. Despite managing to climb atop it, the diving bell was conspicuously absent. Despite his futile attempts, he eventually resigned himself to the grim inevitability of his fate. Embraced by a tranquility that enveloped him, Chris started to come to terms with the realization that this was how his life would conclude. He experienced profound sorrow, realizing that his days would conclude in a distressing and gloomy place. Thoughts of his loved ones and the turmoil he might inflict upon them weighed heavily on his mind. With this thought, he succumbed to unconsciousness. Fortunately, his co-workers did not give up in their efforts to locate him. Through superhuman efforts, they succeeded in finding him. Given the unfavorable circumstances they faced, they presumed they were descending to recover a lifeless body. Dave managed to bring Chris to the diving bell, where Duncan administered 2 breaths. Miraculously, Chris came back to life, sputtering and breathing again. This revival occurred a staggering 35 minutes after he had activated his emergency air supply. Given the prolonged period without oxygen, the risk of brain damage was substantial. However, against the odds, Chris emerged unscathed and in good health. 3 weeks later, Chris returned to the sea with his team. Within a few months, he started a new chapter of his life by marrying his fiancée, Morag. While there still is no definitive explanation for how he managed to survive the incident, researchers have identified 2 factors believed to have worked in his favor. Firstly, the cold played a pivotal role. As Chris's suit lost its hot water supply, subjecting him to the icy waters of the North Sea at 4 degrees Celsius, akin to the temperature of a standard ice bath. His body rapidly cooled while lying atop the manifold after losing consciousness. This abrupt temperature drop likely considerably decelerated Chris's metabolic processes, leading to a reduction in his oxygen consumption. The second contributing factor was the gas mix he was breathing. The heliox mixture, which is a breathing gas mixture of helium and oxygen, contains a higher partial pressure of oxygen than what we normally breathe at the surface. Chris had not been breathing this mixture during the dive, but had been immersed in a diving chamber filled with it for weeks. Consequently, Chris's tissues were likely more saturated with oxygen than those of an average person, providing him with a greater reserve to draw upon during the breathless minutes that unfolded. Yet consider the possibility that this phenomenon stems from a supernatural force beyond our capacity to comprehend. Could it be possible that Chris's second chance at life was a miraculous gift bestowed upon him by God? After all, the Holy Bible recounts remarkable stories of how Jesus Christ touched, healed, and transformed countless lives. He defied the laws of nature, even raising the dead, thereby demonstrating his authority over life and death. Arguably, one of Jesus' most astounding miracles occurred when he raised Lazarus from the dead, a man who held a close relationship with Christ. When Lazarus' sisters conveyed the distressing news that he was sick to Jesus, he deliberately delayed his journey to Bethany by 2 days. Jesus, aware that he was about to perform a remarkable miracle for the glory of God, exhibited a purposeful calmness. Upon Jesus' arrival in Bethany, Lazarus had already been deceased and entombed for 4 days. Martha, learning that Jesus was approaching, went out to meet him, expressing, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus assured Martha, saying, "Your brother will rise again." However, Martha misunderstood, believing he referred to the ultimate resurrection of the dead. Then Jesus uttered these crucial words, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies, and whoever lives and believes in me will never die." Subsequently, Jesus, accompanied by the mourners, approached Lazarus' tomb. He instructed them to roll away the stone that sealed the burial site on the hillside. Jesus then raised his eyes to heaven, offering a prayer to his Father, concluding with the powerful command, "Lazarus, come out!" Astonishingly, Lazarus emerged from the tomb, prompting Jesus to instruct the onlookers to remove his burial garments. In life, there are events we can't explain, defying what we understand. Jesus' miracles, like bringing Lazarus back to life, suggest that sometimes we shouldn't try to figure everything out. Instead, they encourage us to see these miracles as signs of something deep and beyond our understanding, the power of the divine. What are your thoughts about this? I hope you like our story. Until the next one.